Being a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog is really difficult sometimes. With a series that has seen exponential growth within the last 30 years, naturally, each thing that comes out of this franchise is going to have its unique fans and critics. Every comic, every TV show, every movie, and yes, every game falls under this rule. And you know, that inherently isn't a bad thing. Having diversity and different tastes is one of the reasons for why discussions among any fandom is so much fun. Gushing about your favorite games in a series you absolutely adore and listening to what other people's favorites are that may or may not be different from yours is really cool and interesting. And in theory, with how many things the Sonic series has experimented with over the years, discussions should be really informative, right? Right? Why are y'all laughing at me? Sonic discussion falls under two scenarios. Scenario A, everyone shares their opinion and hears each other out in a friendly, respectful, and civilized way. Scenario B,
Bro, I don't think I met a more ignorant and stupid person in my entire life.
Insanity. It's no secret that the Sonic fanbase is made up of very, very passionate people. And as such, many of us have very, very strong opinions about what this series should or shouldn't do. And although some of us at the very least try to keep an open mind during these discussions, there is still that side of the fandom that only exists to cause chaos. This was the most noticeable to me when Sonic Forces came out, but the fanbase currently is by far the most divided and fragmented I've ever seen it. Elitism, the belief that your favorite game / era you grew up with is the be-all and end-all best, has been very common, as well as putting negative labels on a game released during a certain era. That too has also been a thing. And in general, there's just been so much negativity and vitriol in the fandom nowadays. It's just no longer fun to talk about Sonic anymore. It's no longer fun to express just how much you love a game in the series, because, well, you'll most likely get 50 plus comments essentially saying that you're wrong and the game you loved your entire life is complete garbage. So what am I gonna do about it? I don't know, but seeing that the Sonic brand is finally hitting the mainstream audience with a successful film series, which by the way, at the time this video is being recorded, the second movie is a couple days from releasing in North America, I'm so excited! And the fact that this is one of the only times that Sonic is being genuinely enjoyed by a large group of people in some form or fashion, I feel like I should show my love and positivity for this franchise now more than ever, by sharing my top 5 favorite games in the Sonic the Hedgehog series. These games, regardless of what direction the series will take, and regardless of what the general consensus is, are games that I have always loved and cherished. They're games that I find myself revisiting year after year after year, and are among some of my all-time favorite games, with number 1 also doubling as my favorite game of all time. And look, all because I put these games in order doesn't and really shouldn't mean anything. I have a lot to say about all 5 of these games, and seeing that more than half of them could be viewed as mediocre or even bad, I'll also be in for my share of defending. And besides, my opinions constantly change and shift around, so this list isn't going to be 100% accurate all the time anyway. So, let me stop wasting more of your valuable time, and finally get into this list with number 5, being a childhood classic of mine that I will defend to the grave. Yep, just diving headfirst into controversy with this one. I hold a lot of sentimental value with Black Knight. That game alongside another, which, spoilers, that game is also on this list, is one of the first real Sonic games I ever played, if excluding this one. And let me tell ya, back in 2011, me and my younger brother were absolutely addicted to this game. I consider myself one of the few people who genuinely finds the swordplay in this game incredibly satisfying. They managed that slashing your way through hordes of enemies is fun, while still making Sonic quick and agile, with things like how after you land a jump, you'll instantly regain top speed, or how you can slash while you're on the move. And now that I think about it, a good chunk of that satisfaction comes from a new move you can do, the Soul Surge. It's very dramatic. The camera around Sonic dynamically snaps from one post to the next, and the sound when you land a hit with perfect timing is just so good. But brushing that to the side, the game just has a sense of charm that not many other Sonic games have. The story is probably my favorite of any Sonic game, and this is coming from someone who doesn't give a flying footin' about plot in any of these games. The music is easily some of the best in any Sonic game, especially the vocal themes. And the entire storybook aesthetic this game goes for is just so visually appealing. The cutscenes have this hand-drawn art style, the members of the cast now wear different clothing resembling said Knights of the Round Table, and there's even dialogue during gameplay. It's all just incredible and gives the game an almost wholesome atmosphere to it. I guess one of my more major gripes of this game is that it's by far one of the shortest games in the entire series. Like, the whole game can be in around 2 hours-ish if you know what you're doing. But regardless, it still feels complete, fun, charming, and it's just an unforgettable adventure that we'll probably never get a follow-up to. Well, I'm starting to get a little bit sad now, so let's go on to number 4, which is a game that many would argue is the best game in the whole series. It's a game that has very little to complain about, and is generally well respected by many. It's Sonic Forces. "2011 was the best year to be a 7-year-old, incredibly stupid, and way too obsessed with 2010's cartoons. So when I saw the commercial for Generations and saw that you were running down buildings, getting lifted from helicopters, and running away from the most mentally insane truck driver I've ever seen, y'all gotta understand something. Sonic back then was just the coolest thing on the planet. And I waited in pure anticipation for the game. And to make a long story short, I wouldn't get to play the game until like last year, almost 10 years after the game came out. It's really easy to see why this game is so beloved. Simply put, Generations has some of the best selection of levels the boost formula has ever seen. The boost itself still feels satisfying, and making it even better is just how many multiple pathways and shortcuts there are within these levels. In the lesser talked about part of this game, Classic Sonic is more based around using a more powerful version of the spin dash, as well as platforming with some of the smoothest 2D controls a game could give you. He's really fun to play as, and to be honest, I wasn't expecting to have as much fun with Classic Sonic, because, you know, the boost formula is just more of what I'm into. But man, the game has such a celebratory feel to it. This game's soundtrack is ginormous, and is filled to the brim with remixes from nearly every single composer who has worked on music in this franchise. The levels themselves featured reimagined set pieces that lovingly tribute these very iconic moments within the series. And the best part about all of this is that if you aren't familiar with the series, all of these things have enough qualities to be good purely on their own merits. God, I just love this game, bro. Every time I go back to this game, I'm reminded why I love these characters, these worlds, these stages. Except you, these songs, just this game sums up everything I love about Sonic. And the fact that this is also an anniversary title it just fits so good. I love it. I love it all. Arguably just as much as I love the next game on this list, number 3. And actually, fun fact about me, but this game actually used to be my favorite game of the series a couple of years ago. Which one? How about... It feels so good to be back. During the build-up towards Sonic Mania in 2017, I decided to replay every single classic Sonic game I could get my hands on, with Sonic 3 being the only game of the bunch that I haven't fully played yet. And to say I was pleasantly surprised would be a huge understatement. I remember spending the rest of that summer playing this game to 100% completion. This was, and still is, what I consider to be the perfect 2D Sonic game. The level design seamlessly incorporates speed, platforming, and exploration. All three things that give Sonic games that distinctly satisfying and replayable edge. These stages are generally pretty big, but are still speedy, crunchy, and fast-paced, and almost never overstay their welcome. These levels also fill to the brim with secret areas, as well as giant rings that take you to this game's rendition of the special stages. And by the way, these are some of the best special stages in any Sonic game, bar none. They're fast, they're easy to navigate, and they're just so fun to play. And by proxy, it makes getting all the Chaos Emeralds itself a challenge that's actually fun. Oh, and by the way, there are actually 2 sets of emeralds to collect in this game, meaning that there's an even powerful version of Sonic you can obtain. Which leads me to another thing. We got 3 playable characters. We got Tails making his playable debut with the power of flight, making exploration more fun and easy. Knuckles makes his first appearance and can climb up walls, but can't really jump as high, thus making him the hard mode of this game. And Maurice, the Hedgelord himself, finally makes his return, playing the same way as he did in the game's past, now with an Insta-Shield and full access to power-ups via the elemental shields. Like, bruh.
There's so much to this game.
This game came out in 1994, and almost 30 years later, it still just blows my mind how big this game truly is. The team wanted to make the biggest, grandest, definitive Sonic game ever, and they didn't just meet that goal, they absolutely surpassed it in every single way possible. I love this game so much. Now for number 2, come on, you knew that one of these two games had to be on here. The adventure games tend to spark up the most debate among fans, for better or worse. Both games are some of the most treasured games in the series, and thus have very, very passionate fan bases behind them. So that pretty much means that this choice is definitely going to end up with me having a black eye, so let's just get this over with. Okay, I'm fully aware that putting Sonic Adventure 1 above 3 and Knuckles in Generations is the equivalent of the death sentence, but let me explain. You know, in hindsight, I really should have mentioned this while I was talking about Generations, but the only current gen console I had in the early 2010s was a Wii, so I couldn't really play most mainline Sonic games for a while. But fortunately for me, around 2015-2016, my family got a PC in our basement, and hearing that I could play Sonic games on it made me excited beyond belief. And the first Sonic game I got after the long hiatus was Sonic Adventure DX, and from there, the rest is pretty much history. To start, these are some of my favorite levels in the entire franchise. Generally, these levels are pretty linear, but they still have areas that feel more open and provide more space for you to move around and get a feel for the controls. And speaking of the controls, this game by far features the best 3D control in any Sonic game ever. He feels so smooth and fluid. They made his jumps more floatier to make platforming a lot more forgiving. And it's just a joy to move around and control Sonic. For the first game in the 3D series, it nails the multiple pathways and alternate routes perfectly. There's also enormous set pieces that are nothing short of iconic, memorable, and grand, giving this game such a big sense of production and scope, and make this game feel like an actual adventure. I can already hear it coming, so I'm just gonna go ahead and mention it now. Yes, what I just described to you is Sonic's campaign only. I'm fully aware that 5/6 of your playtime is going to be with other characters with different attributes from Sonic's. But when I say that I adore this game, I'm talking about the whole 9 yards. I love the flight-based racing that Tails provides. I really like the treasure hunting stages with Knuckles, and how exploring these levels and emerald pieces are still very fun, although a bit on the easy side. I love playing as Amy and doing all these bite-sized puzzles while running away from this psychotic robot. I love the fast-paced shoot-'em-up action that Gamma provides, and even though there really is no Saving Biggs campaign, I'm still having fun in some way or another for the majority of the experience. And even disregarding all those things, the game is just so damn charming. These graphics, these character models, these aesthetics are some of the most memorable in the series, and one of the greatest gaming soundtracks ever made. Every single one of those things has such a distinct style and vibe to them. It seems to me like the team ultimately took the ambition and willingness to be something more that Sonic 3 had and further amplify it with this game. Because like Sonic 3, there's a lot to this game. Way too much for me to cram into this one video, in fact. Like, Sonic Adventure is one of those games to where I really want to do a dedicated video on it, because I just have all these very strong feelings towards it. I love it way too much to just express all my feelings onto a top 5 list that's already gonna put me on a list of some kind. And I guess we're on that subject. Number 1. A game that I've been attached to ever since childhood. A game that, to this day, I simply get so excited for and so passionate about. My favorite Sonic game and my favorite video game ever made. This would also be the part where I talk about my honorable mentions and all that, but I really don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just going to throw a bunch of them up on screen. Even though these games are on the list, please trust my word that I love all of them. And actually, I even consider some of these games to be objectively better than the games that are present on this very list. But let's get back on topic and finally talk about the part that both you and I have been waiting for. Number 1. It's impossible for my brain to find the words that accurately express just how much I love Sonic Colors. I love it, I love it. I can only say I love it so much before sounding like a broken record, but I just love it so much. And I do mean that last part somewhat literally, as nowadays, this game brings out the absolute worst in a good amount of the fandom. But we'll get to that later. I need to let myself gush for my favorite game ever made. Colors was the very first Sonic game I ever played, again if you're excluding this, and within the first couple seconds of gameplay, this game left a bigger impact on me than any other game I ever played. I have never in my life experienced this level of thrill and excitement in a video game before, nor have I ever seen a character move this goddamn fast. Like, prior to playing this game, I knew Sonic's whole thing was that he's fast, but God, I was simply just blown away. And when I got to the end of Tropical Resort Act 1, I remember declaring this game the greatest thing ever and proceeded to play the entire first level like 6 or 7 times before moving on. But no, see, that's the main reason why I adore this game so much. This game perfects the art of replayability. Colors has some of the best selection of levels in the series history, and a big reason as to why is because of just how big and sprawling they are. These levels, more than ever before, puts an emphasis on exploration. This can primarily be seen through the red rings and how they serve as a reward for going out of your way to explore. But the reason why I find exploration so satisfying is because of the absurd amount of shortcuts and alternate routes present in almost every level in the game. And I know what a few of you might be thinking. Well, the other games you mentioned on this list also had multiple paths, so what makes Colors so special? The Wisps. On top of being mostly fun to use in their own right, the Wisps were seemingly designed exclusively for exploration purposes. I mean, the sheer number of shortcuts doubles, if not triples, when you take the Wisps into account. And all of them don't only branch out beautifully into the main path, but there are just so many. Just when you take one, you completely miss out on another. And the sheer abundance of them gives this game just so much replay value. Replaying these stages, finding your preferred way of playing through these levels, and clearing them in the fastest amount of time possible is so damn addicting. Like, it's flat out impossible for me to get tired of this game. I could play this game for the rest of my life and never even get a little sick of it. But then we have the stage aesthetics. Oh my god. They're so good. They're so imaginative. They're so visually appealing. They give a distinct atmosphere to all these areas and makes them feel so alive. And it's because of this why I find these set pieces to stick out in my head so much more. And then we have the soundtrack, which, gosh, although it's not my personal favorite, it definitely has some of the most atmospheric and well-composed songs in the entire series. And man, it's just the whole game is just so polished and premium and perfect. Okay, I think that last part might be a bit of an exaggeration. Look, okay, I know this game does a couple of things that many members of the fanbase dislike, and that's really putting it lightly. To start, the things like the story tend to be more filled with jokes and moments that are less serious than previous games. The controls definitely have seen a noticeable downgrade given the hardware that it's on, and approximately half the experience is spent with these bite-sized levels that have a lot less to do with speed and exploration, and more to do with platforming. Everyone has their own takes on these things, and that's fine. I like that a lot, but for me, these things just don't take away from the experience at all. And I'd even go as far to say that I genuinely like most of them. The story is one that I genuinely enjoy, and personally am much more of a fan of the plot not taking itself too seriously and just focusing on the sillier and charming moments between the characters. And I find the majority of these bite-sized levels to be very fun, and I find that their slower and more methodical way of doing things to be very relaxing and a welcome change of pace. Now, there are just so many other things I could gush about when it comes to this game, but when you really get down to it, the level design, the atmosphere, that last stability, all of those things amount to what I consider to be the perfect video game. But I don't just mean perfect as, oh, this game is flawless and it has absolutely nothing wrong with it. No game is objectively flawless. But when I say that this game is perfect, I more so mean the experience itself. Like, every time I boot it up, I always manage to just get lost in it, exploring these gigantic levels, being immersed with these gorgeous and thrilling areas, and listening to music that just gives these areas so much life and energy, the life and energy that I want out of a game. There were just so many sessions during the footage gathering process where I just didn't want to stop playing. I wanted to soak up as much of its excellence as I possibly could. And I guess that also segues into probably my most glaring flaw with this game. It's very short. Now look, I'm the last person to care about how long a game is, but if you know this game as well as I do, you can beat the entire thing in a little over an hour. But I think the reason why it's become so noticeable to me over the years is really just because I wanted to experience more of it. I wanted to stay in this world for longer. And you want to know the reason for that? It's because with each playthrough, with each new pathway I discover, I gain an even deeper respect for a game that I always loved, a game that will probably always be my favorite, and a game that will always be special and cherished by no one else in the entire world, me. Sonic Colors is my favorite Sonic game and my favorite video game of all time. But even though I adore Colors with my life, I mean, come on, guys. I think we can all agree that Gamecom Sonic Jam is objectively the greatest Sonic game ever made, right? Right?